Hello and welcome to this week's lecture. This week we're going to talk about searching, but first I want to continue as I did last week and make some comments on your discussion from 2 weeks ago on welcoming environments. Once again, great discussion, some great comments. I really liked Danielle, what she said about the caricature of a cranky old librarian shushing everyone that needs to be tossed out. And as Nicole noted, the reality of this needs to be tossed out also. There are unfortunately some cranky librarians left, and they can do a lot of damage. Tracy mentioned that the experience of the school library can be critically important for the perception of librarians throughout their life, and the same with their students' perceptions of the librarian, not just the library. And the perception, their experience in the library can affect them all their life, and that's part of the reason why excuse me, NJLA works with NJSL. NJLA is the New Jersey Library Association, and it works with the New Jersey Association of School Librarians they understand how important school libraries are for setting the stage for all other libraries, including academic, public, special, any other kind of library that you might think of. If a person doesn't have any experience with school libraries to begin with, then they'll be at a disadvantage using them later in their life, or not think to use them later in their life. And if they have a negative experience with a cranky old librarian, that's not going to help either. So I agree with Kristen. Miss Frizzle is a way to go. Several of you said listening intently and valuing students is important, and it's a great point. I totally agree. Thank you, Kristen, for sharing your photo of the library, and Pamela's sounds wonderful for with the new furniture and the stuffed animals. I'm sure your kids really appreciate those. And I like Pat's idea to have character stuffed animals next to the books for wayfinding. Deborah had the same idea with words and pictures, so additional clues when they can't read for helping them find what they want. Michael, the Chat and Chew is a great name for your book club, and I think the informality would really appeal to the kids. That sounds wonderful. Roberta noted that the library should be the heart of the school. It really can have an impact on every single student in the school. And Amanda had a great point about leading students through the process of asking reference questions, something I kind of hadn't thought of before, because several of you mentioned that you're shy to go up and ask a librarian questions, and maybe that's partly because we've never been taught how to do that. I mean, we know now as a librarian that it's our job, but if you're not walked through the process, as Amanda suggests, we become afraid of disturbing the librarian and not knowing that it's okay to go up and ask questions, and that the librarian can help you. So excellent points on the discussion. So once you've begun to conduct a reference interview, we talked last week about the questioning part of the reference interview. The next step is to find information. Help your patron, and I'm going to use that term as a big category term. It could be a teacher, an administrator, a student. Find the information that they're looking for. So we've narrowed down what they're looking for. We've asked some questions, open-ended, neutral. Now let's try and help them find what they need. So in some cases you have to search online, and this week we're going to introduce you to search engines, databases, investigate the difference between the two, and cover methods for searching online and in the databases, including Boolean searches, nesting, truncation, and wildcards. Well, some of you may find this vocabulary new, some of you may have been doing it all along. So we will start with just terminology-wise, OPACs are basically the original name for catalogs, and certainly you've all done searching on catalogs, and that's a kind of online searching for books and other information. So that's one kind of one place where you might go online to look for information, leading you to books most often, but it is a place where we would use some of the searching tools we're going to talk about. Google's an index or a search engine. So to differentiate between databases and search engines like Google, Bing, and Yahoo, they scrape information from the web and use an algorithm to decide how to list the sites in order of relevance. And they decide what, based on your search, based on what they want to give you, what's relevant. And you kind of saw from your first journal exercise how different search engines can return maybe slightly different results, or in a different format, or put ads first. So, but basically they come up with an algorithm that decides what should be returned with this search. We're going to look at ways in both search engines and databases we can manipulate and refine our searches to get better results. It's not going to change the algorithm, but it's going to change basically what we're requesting so that the algorithm will respond differently. As opposed to search engines, which looks at a lot of web-based material, not all of it. Everything is not on Google. I think at one point the percentage was like 10% of all information out there is searched by Google. And the other 90% is in places that you can't get it. It could be in databases, which can be behind paywalls, could be in intrawebs, where it's only available to people within a company, could be behind other kinds of private, making, inaccessible areas on the web. So even though people think if they searched Google, they've searched everywhere, that's not true. Databases are curated. They're resources gathered around a common theme that can be very narrow or very broad. So we're going to go into the databases. I want to show you what's available in our library at, whoops, that's not the one I want. I want this one. At the William Patterson Library, which is the Chang Library, David and Lorraine Chang Library. And so if you're looking for databases, you go here where it says databases, and they're alphabetically. You can select a subject, and you can see that they've broken them down to subjects. There's overlap. If you pick some different subjects, you might come to the same databases. A database that's particularly important for you to know about, it doesn't have a lot of material in it, but it's Library Information Science and Technology Database. Basically, when you're using these databases from home, you're going to use your your student credentials, your email, the first part of your email, your last name and first letter and numbers if necessary, and then the password you use for your email and BlackBerry login. And that will allow you to access the material that's like, these are databases that are paid for by Chang, and so they have this login so that you don't have to be at the library to access them. I'm sure you have something like that. You're aware of something like this through other through using your library at school or in other places. But this brings you to the databases. So you'll pick your database and then ask you to sign in, and then we're searching Library Information Science and Technology Abstracts. That's one database that you can search. There's a bunch of other ones. There's broad databases like Academic Search Complete, 8,500 full-text publications, academic journals, magazines, books, covers biology, chemistry, food science, law, math. So this is a very broad database. Then you have something like America, History and Life, 450,000 citations, but it's about a particular topic. They have, I think, chemistry, chemical abstracts, Child Welfare Information Gateway. Trying to find something. Communication and Mass Media Complete. So if you are taking COM, this is where you would go. Criminal Justice Abstracts. So you can see they can be very narrow. I think there's the statistics. Where's the stat? Science Magazine Online, very narrow. It's just the magazine. That's considered a database. But these databases, this information, here's this is what I was thinking of, the Statistical Abstract of the United States, which gives you statistical information drawn from Census Bureau, Bureau of Labor Statistics, Economic Analysis, and other federal agencies. Very useful database. So these are databases. This gives you an idea of what's in them. Library, if you notice, the library one doesn't have an explanation. It's kind of assumed from the title. And it's very narrow. Although it covers, sometimes you look in there and look in library information and technology abstracts, and you'll find, because it covers technology, because it covers information science and overlaps with school libraries, you'll find quite a range of material in there. So I wanted to point out that Google Scholar is one that you can, I'm sure you might have heard of Google Scholar. You can do a search outside, just type in Google Scholar and do a search in Google Scholar. But if you do it through the databases in the Cheng Library and do a search, Latino children's literature, you'll find that if it's a full text in the library, it will give you that link. And here we're not seeing anything where it isn't also here. So this would not be, this is open, this is available in other places besides full text, but this one, you wouldn't have access to it if you weren't, you wouldn't know that necessarily that we have it at the library if you didn't go in through the library to and do your search after logging in through the library. That was harder to say than it should have been. Oops. So you have to choose when you're looking, when you're searching, helping somebody find information or searching for yourself, you have to find the appropriate database, make a connection. You know, you might start broad, find too much information, or find, or if you get to know your databases, and you probably won't have as many to use. You might have more if you're in high school, but pick an appropriate database or help your students pick an appropriate database. I wanted to talk a little bit about keywords versus subject searching. Most of the searching that we do is keyword searching, which is what I just showed you. Sorry, I need to escape. Is keyword searching, which is just putting in words into here, into the search bar. And that's what you do all the time in Google. You're putting in words that you think will bring back a result that will make sense. So I put in diversity and children, and it came up with this first result: STEAM around the world successfully incorporated hands-on learning into diversity, and see how it highlights diversity and children. But what I wanted to point out is that when you go into the record, and I'm not still signed on here, I am sorry, I'm in a different, let me see if it does it now. Okay, so STEAM around the world. Okay. It gives us subject terms, and these are a different way that the database sorts information. And you can actually, if you leave this as select a field, you're doing keyword search. You can choose to select subject terms and search subject terms. And what I think is interesting is, even though this came up because I put diversity and children's in here, none of the subject terms really have anything to do with, don't say anything about diversity. We've got public libraries, STEM education, science. If you do find something that looks like you want, like you say, I've put this in, I come up with this article, and I realize that education policy is really, I haven't used that word, but this is probably what I want to know more about. You can click on the subject term or do a search for it, and you're going to come up with other articles that have been given the subject term education policy. And there are times when this can be a very useful way of expanding your search or even narrowing your search. Sometimes I find this fails because it doesn't, if you're doing it through the linking, you can only choose one of the keywords, and it makes, sometimes I find only choose one of the subject terms, and sometimes I find that keywords can be more flexible. I think if you do it here, you can choose subject term, 2 sets of subject terms, and it'll look for both sets of subject terms. Hope that wasn't too confusing. I just want you to recognize those terms, that keyword searching and subject term searching are different and have different uses. So I need to go back to my PowerPoint, sorry. So next we're going to go on to different tricks and symbols that can refine and make your searches more efficient. So quotation marks has to be the easiest of these tricks to use. I don't want to call them tricks. They're more, I can't think of the right word, but they're ways to make your searching more efficient, as I said before. So if I were to search star and wars, I would get terms that include like stars have an info wars or something like that. But if I put Star Wars in quotes, it's only going to bring up, or it's going to bring up as most relevant, places where Star Wars are together in that they're next to each other. So what I've noticed Google doing lately is it'll give me, especially if it doesn't have a lot of results, it'll give you the ones in the quotes, and then later on it'll ignore what you're asking for because it wants to return a bunch of things to you. But this can be useful if you're looking for something very particular. It can be useful for plagiarism. I will have in the past used this, and when I find something that looks written and it looks like I've seen it somewhere, I'll put that phrase in quotes and put it in Google, and sometimes I find the exact quote that hasn't been attributed. So Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, United States, and there's oftentimes where you'll get the similar results with both, but if one of them is a common term, and it's not something that's commonly used together, then the quotes can really make a difference. And I suggest trying them and seeing when it works and when it doesn't, but it can be really very useful. All right, Boolean searching. This is something that seemed very scary when I first heard about it, but it's really not. Boolean searching is actually a mathematical term, but don't be afraid, because we're not going to do math. We are going to look at a Venn diagram, but we're not going to do math. And it's ways of combining terms to get different results. And Kathy Schrock has the best demonstration of this, her Boolean machine. So when you use and it has to be in capital letters. So if I am going to put this into the search box, I'm going to put endangered, because these are our 2 search terms up here, endangered, and then capital letters A-N-D, and then birds. And what I get are only websites with or database results, because many of these with slight changes in sometimes the symbol that's used in truncation, some other things. These also work in databases. So I'm only going to get returns that mention both endangered and birds in it. So if it has talks about birds, but it says nothing about endangered birds, I won't get it. If it talks about endangered lions or mammals, but says nothing about birds, it won't be returned. It's only going to return me material that has both the word endangered and the word birds in it. Most of the search engines assume an and as default. So when I did this search here, it's basically assuming that I only want things that both of these terms are included in. And I could have also done it this way and taken diversity and put it in that line and children in that line to be even more sure that is, and we should get the same. Okay, it's not going to be nice to me today. Let me see. You should get the same search result. Oh, but you don't. Okay, and why? I have no idea. But here's similar. It could be, I don't know. But here's that one that was #1 in the other search. But that is really weird. Sometimes search engines do this, and it gives you a slightly different result. But it is, as you can see, it is giving you both diversity and children's in my returns. So it's assuming that I want to see both as at the top of my returns. I do hate when it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So let me go back to Schrock. Or is the next one, and when you do or, you're getting everything. It means I want everything with endangered, I want everything with birds, I want everything with bears. So you can do or and or and or and or and get everything. So instead of just getting where the two circles overlap, everything that says endangered and birds, I'm going to get everything that says endangered, my endangered lions, my endangered tigers and mammals, and I'm going to get everything with birds, whether they're endangered or not. So you get you expand what you get when you use the or. It's not often used when you're doing, you're probably not going to use or very often unless you're just really trying to expand, maybe if you don't have the right search terms, because we're going to talk about synonyms later, but if you don't have the right synonyms, must be hungry, I'm talking about cinnamon. So if I'm looking for beef cows and I'm not coming up with a lot on beef cows, if I put or in, maybe I'll get something that says cows or bovines or etc. So there might be helpful if you're just getting so little, you might try an or. Not is interesting because it eliminates things. So if you use not, it means I want everything about endangered but nothing about endangered birds. I want endangered lions, endangered mammals, endangered whatever, but nothing about birds. I don't want to hear about those endangered birds at all. I don't want anything about birds. And this can be useful if one of the terms is common and it's messing up your search, or if you need to narrow down your search, or you need to let's say I want chocolate cookies, but I don't want chocolate chip cookies. So I can look for chocolate cookies, but not chips, because I want my whole cookie with chocolate in it. I don't just want chips in it. I want a fully chocolate cookie recipe. So I'm going to eliminate the chips, because if you put in chocolate cookies, you're going to get a lot of chocolate cookie recipes. You're going to get a lot of chocolate chip cookie recipes, and you can say not and do it. Thing to remember with not, in databases, it's going to be usually the not is a drop down, or you can type it out. When you type these terms out, they need to be caps in order to be recognized as Boolean connectors, as Boolean search terms. When you use the not in Google, it's just a minus sign. So if I go into Google and do my chocolate, see, the first thing that I don't even have, I guess it knows I love chocolate chip cookies. I put in chocolate, but I'm going to put in chocolate cookies, and I can't use not on Google. They use a minus sign and then chips, like water for chocolate cookies. Okay, so you can see just from the drop-down menu, I get much different things. So white chocolate cookie recipes, jumbo chocolate. I'm really getting chocolate. Google is really trying to defeat the these search terms, because it's giving us everything. I don't want chocolate chip cookies. I told it I didn't want chocolate chip cookies, and it's giving me. But over here in the regular search terms, it's not coming back with the chips. But it's thinking I want chocolate chip cookies. Okay, so and, or, and not. And I'm going to give you some exercises as you go through it, as we go through our journals, just to play with this a little bit. So that's Boolean searching. Now you know what that is. Truncation is another thing that you can use when searching to find more terms. So often it is an asterisk, but you have to, if you're working in a database, and even some different search engines, you have to make sure that you know what their truncation symbol is. It could be something else. But if I put in LIBR asterisk, it's going to give me, it should return things with library, librarian, libraries, Libra, libretto, because it's going to look for just the first four letters and return things. This is very useful. Google tends to do this now anyway. Not all databases do. You can also force some of these other things to the top and change your results order. But if you're not getting what you want and you're not finding the information, this can be a good way to expand the returns that you get. Nesting is another way of searching for being more specific about your search. You're probably not going to use some of these more intricate and more complicated searching strategies. That's the term I want, search strategies. But it's good to know about them, and just to know that they're out there in case you are doing some more complicated searches for yourself. So say I want to learn about geological formations, but not just any old place. I want to learn about them from Utah, Colorado, and Nevada. I'm looking at those three places. I don't want Wyoming. I don't want Arizona. I want geological, and it could be the geology of geological. So I'm using the truncation. So I get expanded words that start with this term. And, meaning I want things with this and with this. And I'm nesting, I'm putting these terms together in parentheses, which means if you remember your math order, it's going to look for the terms here, and then it's going to match it with this. So by using Utah or Colorado or Nevada, I'm going to get everything that mentions Utah, everything that mentions Colorado, everything that mentions Nevada. And then when I combine it with and, it's only going to give me things that mention those three and geology. Because if I just did Utah or Colorado or Nevada, I'm going to get everything from Colorado Rockies to the Mormon Church because it's in Utah, etc., etc. So I want those 3 states, but I only want those 3 states. So I want everything that mentions those 3 states and also mentions geology. Same with baseball. If I just put in baseball, I'm going to get whatever Google decides is the most important, relevant things about baseball, based probably on my past searches. But I only want to find out about the Dodgers and the Yankees. So even though I say I want to find out about the Dodgers and the Yankees, I'm going to use OR, because remember, OR gives me everything. It's going to give me Dodgers and baseball and Yankees and baseball. So everything that says baseball and Yankees and everything that says Dodgers and Yankees, and probably repetitive because if I'm putting in Dodgers, it assumes baseball, but it's hard to think of good examples for this. But so we're combining Boolean with nesting, and nesting is putting things in parentheses and forcing it to do that search first. So it understands that you are looking to combine baseball and the combined search of Dodgers or Yankees, all of that information. Another nice thing are wildcards, expanding the search for similar words. Often a wildcard can be a question mark. It can depend on the database, and it can depend on the search engine. So as if you're looking for the term woman and women, if you use the question mark there, it's going to return both. Color, you don't know if it's spelled in a website the British way or the American way, add the question mark and it's going to return both. Again, Google tends to do this for us now, but some databases are not as, don't have the search capacities that Google necessarily has. So this is good to know for databases. Narrowing down searches. These strategies and can be useful for narrowing down. I'm going to be giving you links in under the tab so that you have some of these, but you can look for a file type. So if you wanted to just find PowerPoints, so I'm going to go in here and do dinosaurs file type :PPT. So I want PowerPoints with dinosaurs in them. So if you notice, all of these have PPT in front of them, which means that they're, oops, let's see if I can open that. It's going to take a long time to download. Of course, I had picked a big one. But so this is helpful if you know that what you're looking, if you know that what you're looking for is a PowerPoint that you saw at some point and it was about dinosaurs, this can help you narrow it down. Or if somebody asks you for PowerPoints on whatever, this can help you narrow it down. So some of the other things you can do is cite. So if you know that you want to find something on time.com or newsweek.com or something, so I'm looking for Apollo 13 information on time.com, this is the search string that you would put in, cite : time.com. That's, whoops, sorry, that is in here is your website, and then here is your search term. I could even have done this in parentheses, quotes, put Apollo 13 in quotes, so that comes up towards the top, Apollo 13, as opposed to the other Apollo missions that time.com might have in their archives, their online archives. The other thing to know is that when you're using 2 words in a search, or more than 2 words, the first word ranks slightly higher in the algorithm than the second. So math music will return slightly different results than music math when you do a search. So I'm going to give you links to these, but Google has all of these and more in their search help. Specific sites, info about a site, related sites. There's all different kinds of information here for refining web searches, filtering your search results. There's lots of things. This could be useful if you're looking for a price. If somebody asks you how much it is, you can do hashtag searches in Google, which you probably knew already. And then how to Google also gives you tips. This is an older, get more out, older infographic, but still with some good tips. Again, this gives you the how to do a designated date range, which can be really useful. I hate when I'm looking up reviews of something like the newest. I don't know, I want a new smartwatch, so I put in reviews for smartwatches, but I didn't indicate that I wanted something in the current, and I got something, reviews on smartwatches from 2012. Well, that's not going to be very useful. So this is one way to limit it. There's another way to do it when you go in, when you actually do your search from Google. Across the top, it gives you filters. So how to Google it, different things, Google tricks. You can do a definition right in the bar, ask for define. You can use the bar in use the search bar to do basic calculation, which I think is amazing. Converting units. For me, this would be good for Celsius to Fahrenheit because I never know the conversion on that. And then these are, for some reason, because of where this came from, it gives you Mac shortcuts. So this MIT LibGuide is really useful has some other similar tips. I'm giving you all these just because you need to find the one that makes the most sense for you to how to remember these things. So they have power tips, search operators, which again is that it's not responding well, but it's what we just went over. Here we go. Wildcards, range search. There's all in URL, define, file type, in text. If you're looking for in the body, in the title, a movie. Movie, okay. And stock quotes. So there's all kinds of fun things you can do. Reverse image searching. This can be very useful if you're teaching a lesson on fake news, or just want to find out where an image came from. They tell you how to use reverse image search in Google. And basically you upload the image, drop it into the search box and search it. And this is how they find things like, this picture that's supposed to be from yesterday was actually from 5 years ago, and etc. So it's a good thing to know about. And this is kind of a fun, nerdy thing that I like. It's the data set search, and what did I do here? I did travel miles. I was doing. So this gives you data sets that are out there. And sometimes, it's kind of a geeky thing, but you might have a stats teacher in high school that needs a data set to do graphs on. Students might want to look at, this is the daily miles of travel along roads in New York State. And you can go to visit the page. There was one in Maryland. Okay, so they give you, so here it's just a simple table. You've got years, it's all 1 year, the area that it was taken, and the vehicle miles traveled. So this is showing, there's lots of roads. Okay, because it goes back years. So if you have students comparing how much traffic might be on a road, there's many uses for these data sets. Probably not with your K through 1, but there's also educational data on here. It's all public data, anybody can use it. This is great for researchers, and it could be good, like I said, sometimes you just need a data set to play around with, to use in Excel, to learn how to do charts, pie charts, graphs. You might need to learn, there could be a bunch of ways. I'm sure I'm not thinking of many different ways to use this, but I thought that was a fun, geeky thing. So that's it for searching. Let me just make sure I've mentioned everything I want to mention. And as I said, we're going to be practicing some of these search strategies as we go through the semester in your journals. So thank you for your patience on this one. I think it's an important one, which is why I take a little more time, but I will see you on the discussion board. Thank you.